All right, let's talk Derek Carr. This one is going to be all over the place because I'm just going to say what comes to my mind. I try not to make it too long, because I'm pretty sure you know where this is going. Um, the Derek Carr experiment, whatever you want to call it, has been a total failure from the get go. And I think the first mistake the New Orleans Saints made was signing a 1 year old quarterback to a $150 million deal, especially one who has never done anything in their career to earn that type of contract or that type of confidence in that contract to prove that they could be worth that money and that they could win you a Super Bowl. Never at any point in Derek Carr's career, other than maybe what was it, 2017, has he shown that he can really be that quarterback to go and win you football games. So the first mistake was that signing a 30-plus-year-old quarterback to this contract, right? And the fact that the two men responsible for this contract, Dennis Allen and Mickey Loomis, Dennis Allen, you already got fired one time with this guy as your quarterback back in Oakland with the Raiders. The fact that you were willing to put yourself out there and risk it all again with this same quarterback is mind blowing. And guess what happens? It didn't take Nostradamus to make this prediction. You got fired again with the same quarterback. So the fact that the Saints made this decision to go to pair these two again just shows the incompetence that the front office has, and especially in Mickey Loomis. And Mickey Loomis, man, like, what? There's just is there really even any point talking about him anymore? Because nothing. He has the highest job security in the NFL. He's not going anywhere. So it's like it's pointless to criticize him anymore because it just feels like what's the point, right? So let's start from the top, right? So Derek Carr gets to New Orleans, and what is New Orleans? What are they known for, right? Culture, food. And listen, I know this may not seem like a big deal to people, but it really bugged people that this guy's first meal in the city was Chipotle. Now look, here's what he could have done. Hear me out now. Just lie. I know. Listen, he's a holy man. But you don't get to New Orleans in your press conference and say your first meal was at Chipotle, man. That is not how you get off on the right foot with the Saints. Now, look, I get it. You're traveling, you got your family, your wife, kids with you, you're tired. You stop at Chipotle, you go home to your new home that you're probably not even moved all the way into, right? That's whatever. But you don't sit, you got to just lie, man. Just lie. Just wait a couple days or just say what you had the second day. You know what I mean? So right there, that already rubs people the wrong way. As silly as it may sound, it's the truth, right? And you start the season, you win a couple games, right? And it's going well, right? You're on a new team, you're learning the system, everything's going well. But pretty soon we start to see the real Derek Carr, the one that Raiders fans, at least the non-delusional Raiders fans, tried to warn us about the entire time. It's a guy who is going to simply break down when the moment is too big for him, or when there's pressure in his face, or when the whatever, right? When you really need him to play at the highest level that he can play at, he's just not going to do that. He's terrified of pressure and will just throw it anywhere he can, and usually that ends up on the other team. Um, and I think we saw that pretty early on in year one of Derek Carr with the Saints. Now, but that is not even really what what rubs people the wrong way about him, right? You can be a bad quarterback, or he's not even a bad quarterback. You can be a mid quarterback, and people will still love you. And I pointed to it before, and so have other people. Jameis Winston is a perfect example of that. He's a guy who is not very good. Okay, but he comes in and he embraces the city with open arms, and is still embracing the city, right? He's been on what? He's on his second team now, post New Orleans Saints, and he still talks about his love for the city. Still came back as during the Super Bowl week and did some media, and it's like you could still be not that good of a quarterback and still have the majority of the fan support. And Derek Carr just did everything wrong from day one. Every single thing he did wrong, right? And it takes me back to year one with him. I think the first instance of everybody being like, "Hold on, what's going on here?" is that Thursday night primetime game against the Jacksonville Jaguars when Chris Olave maybe didn't run as hard as he could have or whatever to clear out a route for Taysom Hill and Derek Carr on primetime football in front of everybody when he was playing trash himself that game, completely berated and was yelling at Chris Olave on live TV. Okay, and I think at that point on, him throwing Chris Olave under the bus, and then also Dennis Allen doing the same thing. That right there, I think, was pretty much the beginning of the end for at least how the fans felt, or a big majority of the fans. I know for myself, right? Like that's just something that you either wait till you get to the sideline and talk to him, or you wait till you're in the film room, or you wait till you're in the locker room. But you don't do that right there and like act like you're just the greatest quarterback to ever play the game, or act like you've earned any type of right to do that within the Saints organization. You know, uh, Chris Olave had been there. He had been a New Orleans Saint for a year, right? Derek Carr, you just got there. What gave you the right to yell at Chris Olave like this? Right, a locker room favorite, a fan favorite, a guy who has been there and has made plays. What gave you the right to do that on national TV and embarrass the young kid like that? You're a veteran quarterback that's been in the league a decade. Is that really how you treat your young wide receiver to build up the confidence? To yell at him like that in primetime TV for everybody to see and for everybody to talk about? You know? So I think that right there, like I said, was the beginning of the end for a lot of people. Um, and what else comes to mind? Like he just never fully takes accountability. Like, when the Saints were having red zone issues, right? Something that Derek Carr has struggled with his entire career. And one media member asked him something, and he had like a snarky response, like, "Oh, you can keep asking the same question. I'm gonna keep giving the same answer." Like, dude, just like really? Like he just gives this holier than thou persona. Like he's just this big, just and listen, I have no doubts he was a great husband, great father. I'm not talking about the type of man he is outside of a football field. But he gives off like he's just this holier than thou leader, strong leader, but then it's like a totally different thing in terms of, behind the scenes, right? Like I know a big problem after year 1 was players complaining to the front office, to the New Orleans Saints management that they thought it was unfair how much of a leash or how specially treated Derek Carr was compared to other players. Like the coaches were scared to criticize him because was such a he was sensitive. Okay, I put it that way, right? And the players didn't like that, and it rubbed players the wrong way. You know, and it's obvious, right? Like anytime you will see a interview with a Saints player and they never really give a clear answer when they're asked about Derek Carr, right? They give like the proper political answer, unless it's Cam Jordan, who, by the way, that's a whole nother story, dude. Like, retire, bro. Like, Saints legend, but you are hurting more than helping at this point, especially with your media runs every single year claiming that the Saints are going to win the Super Bowl the next year. Cut that out, bro. But back to Derek Carr. You know, like I said, he just gives off a personality in the media, and it just doesn't seem to match what he's really like behind the scenes. And I don't know the guy. That's just what everything over the years that has happened that I've gathered from him, right? Um, so and then you start to look at his play, right? And a lot of times during these games, there's a lot of plays that he should be making that he's electing checkdowns. He's not throwing the open receiver, and that's a whole nother can of worms, right? You're not performing up to your contract, which at that point was like with the 13th or 14th highest contract in the league, which is not crazy, but you still got to perform at least up to that top of the half league standard. And he just wasn't doing that, right? And another thing, another huge moment in the Derek Carr timeline that pops in my mind is I forget which game it was. I want to say against the Bucks, but maybe not. But it was in year 1 when um, Eric McCoy, right? Eric McCoy lashed out at him. When have we ever seen Eric McCoy do that ever? He's been a New Orleans Saint since he was drafted in 2019, right? When have we ever seen Eric McCoy do that to any player, period? But he did it to Derek Carr. That's when a player like Eric McCoy does that, who is usually even keeled, when a player like that does that, that tells me there's some built up frustration somewhere in there, right? Somewhere in that locker room. Okay. Um, so you get through the year 1, horrible year. embarrassing. But guess what? The Saints decide, we're going to run it back with DC. We're going to run it back with DA. Let's do this whole thing again. Year two, you hire a new OC. First two games, you look great. Offense is on fire, right? You look unstoppable. But then guess what? Adversity hits. And what do we know Derek Carr does when adversity hits? He crumbles. He crumbles. Saints are hit with some injuries. Some games are lost. And guess what? We see Derek Carr go back to performing like Derek Carr. A game that sticks in my mind is the end of the game against the Eagles when the Saints get the ball with like a minute something left, down two. All you need is a field goal, a little bit of pressure from the Eagles. He just chunks it up, throws an interception. That's the Derek Carr we all knew. That's the Derek Carr that wasn't there those first 2 weeks when everything was perfect. Because remember, everything has to be perfect for this guy to look competent at the quarterback position, right? And he plays in limited games this year. I can't remember the exact number of games, but we've seen Rattler start a bunch of games. And the injury thing, like that's a big thing now. Like he got injured in his year one with the Saints and year two and missed games in year two. And so now, back to what I said earlier, you giving a $150 million contract to a quarterback in his 30s, those kind of things starts to happen. And did you not take into account for that? You know? And his play dropped off obviously in his second season, right? Towards the later end of the season, which is obviously going to happen with the injuries that they are hit with, right? That's going to happen for anybody. And I don't even like talking about his play is just not even the point that I'm trying to make in this video. It's just he's just such a fake person, it seems like, man. And so let's just fast forward to the end of year two, right? Oh, by the way, he ended his own season by trying to be Superman for no reason in a meaningless game, but that's beside the point, right? So you get to the off season, right? Um, the Saints, boom, fire or hire a new head coach, Kellen Moore. They have this perfect opportunity, this perfect chance to move on from Derek Carr. And guess what? Derek Carr is like, you know what? Yeah, I think that the fans are right. I think that it's time that me and my family go somewhere else, try a new team. I think I don't want to be New Orleans Saint anymore. Derek Carr wanted out of New Orleans. Period. He wanted to be traded. But instead, the Saints were like, "No, we're gonna restructure your deal, and you're gonna be a New Orleans Saint whether you like it or not." So when you have at least a small chance of getting cutting ties with the guy, what does Mickey Loomis do? He doubles down, but now this time he does it with a quarterback who doesn't even want to be there. So right now at this point, Derek Carr wanted out, still wants out. So I can't even be mad at Derek Carr anymore because he recognized it's not a fit. Derek Carr recognized that this is not a fit. He wanted out of New Orleans. So I'm not mad at Derek Carr anymore because he came to his senses, not a fit, let me go. But Mickey Loomis says, "No, man, I think we're going to keep you. You've done nothing while you've been here, but throw your own players under the bus, act arrogant and, get hurt. Haven't won anything, right? But I think we're still going to keep you even though you don't want to be here." So this right here from now on is on Mickey Loomis. But now guess what happens? Okay. All of a sudden now here in April with the draft coming up, Derek Carr has a shoulder injury that's probably going to make him have to sit out the 2025 season. And then that makes you think, okay, well, hold on now. When did this happen? When did the Saints know about this? Was it before or after the contract restructure? Because something is fishy here, right? Something's fishy here. So I go and I see Albert Breer put this out today, right? And then it kind of clicks in my head. So let's just read what he says about Derek Carr. He says the Derek Carr situation in New Orleans continues to provoke arched eyebrows. Over the weekend, my buddy and old NFL Network colleague Ian Rappaport reported that Carr is dealing with a shoulder injury that could jeopardize his 2025 season and that he's weighing options, including surgery. And it'd be easier for folks across the league to take that at face value were it not for the drama that preceded this most recent revelation. I'll say this. I think the New Orleans Saints' response to this one, when they do address it publicly, will be interesting because of all the recent history. Dennis Allen was a huge reason for Carr being in New Orleans in the first place. The coach who helped bring Carr in the league in Oakland in 2014 was fired in November. So that was the first sign that material change could be made, could be coming in the team slash quarterback dynamic. Soon after, Kellen Moore was hired in mid February. A second sign emerged with rumors percolating that Carr might want out. Okay. So then he goes to say, wow, how and when and whether at all the trade request officially went in is unclear. Other teams were under the impression that Carr was seeking a new home, as some quarterback needy ones considered him a potential option for 2025. So other teams were under the impression Carr wanted out. All that means is Derek Carr's agent was letting other teams know that he is available, right? Now, here it says the door seemed to close on that in early March when the Saints converted 28.745 million of his $30 million base salary into a signing bonus, taking his base all the way down to the league minimum. League minimum. In doing so, it locked New Orleans into paying that money for 2025, meaning if Carr was traded, the Saints would be paying Carr to play for someone else in the fall. The move also was made without Carr's blessing, since the Saints had the contractual right to do that. It's common that teams have this conversion lever written into a contract. So at that point, you essentially had a quarterback who was at best uneasy with his new circumstances and a team doing everything that it could to show him that they weren't going to let him go whether he wanted to stay. Oh my God. So the New Orleans Saints are doing backflips on it to prove to Derek Carr, we want you, man. We want you. Why? Why? He wants out. He wants out. What has Derek Carr done in this league, or especially for your franchise, for you to do this, for you to keep him despite him not wanting to be kept? Again, the team was doing everything it could to show him they weren't going to let him go, whether he wanted to stay. Like, come on, man. And it says, which brings us to where we are now. The Saints knew about this shoulder issue. What I'm less sure about is if they view it as something that was actually threatening his 2025 season. The story I've heard is that Carr's camp has told people that this actually stems from his 2023 AC joint sprain, which fully never healed. Either way, this situation is a strange one. If Carr's not the Saints quarterback this fall, I'm not sure who will be. They could try to make a late run at Rodgers. It seems unlikely that the Falcons will trade Cousins to a division rival, but New Orleans could make a call on that. Or maybe they look at Sanders or Jackson Dart 10 or 11 days from now. So basically, this shoulder injury is from the one that he suffered with the Saints in 2023 that was supposedly all healed over the offseason. So now apparently it's bad enough to where he can miss the 2025 season. It just doesn't make sense. He played with it all through 2024 apparently, right? And by the way, NFL teams have exit physicals. Okay, did you not? I mean, it says they knew about it, but they didn't know the severity of it. So either the severity of it isn't bad enough to stop you from playing, or Derek Carr is opting for it to be bad enough, aka wanting to get it fixed so that he doesn't have to play for the Saints. Either way, the Saints come out of this thing just looking totally ridiculous, and it's just it's mind blowing, right? So just from the very jump, the Derek Carr thing never worked out. And again, at some point, it moved past just his play not being good enough. It's just everything else that came along with him. But for now, some reason the Saints, despite him not wanting to be here after the Saints hired Kellen Moore, despite him wanting to go to a different team, the Saints said no, you're going to stay. And that right there is just ridiculous enough to just like it makes you just wonder why even watch, man. Like this team is ran by a complete fool and Mickey Loomis, who it's now out there that he basically chose to keep a quarterback who is number one not good, old, now kind of injury prone, and also doesn't want to be there. And so that's the potential, or that's the situation that the Saints are in now. So now, what are they going to do with the quarterback position? Spencer Rattler, I know, has put in work all offseason. Whether he gets that opportunity or not, we'll see. The draft is coming up. I hope to God that the Saints do not pursue Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins. Please, please, dear Lord, baby Jesus, do not let that come true. No Aaron Rodgers, no Kirk Cousins. Please, please, please. Just draft one. Draft one, or let Spencer Rattler rock it this season, and then Best case scenario, we see growth from him, and you got your quarterback of the future. Worst case scenario, slash kind of, I guess it'd be worst case scenario. You're so bad that you have like a top 5 pick and you draft a quarterback. So, yeah, appreciate you guys watching. Peace.